What did you learn besides maybe some great hair? He has to be jealous of your hair because you got a good head.
Well, I don't have to do. He does some things with his hair that I don't have to do yet. But you know,
it defies gravity.
He's got a few years on me. You know, as Bill Maher said, maybe he's related to an orangutan, but that got Bill into trouble. Look, Donald is underestimated, believe it or not.
Hold on, just wait. Did you like him?
Oh. First of all, he was traveling around all the time, so all of our conversations were on the phone, which is fine. One can get, it's not quite the same as being in his presence, the Donald's presence. But yes, I came away being very impressed by him as a businessman and as a very clever marketing individual, somebody who has figured out how to get himself in front of people on a regular basis and knows how to make money and is actually very clever when it comes to real estate at the moment.
And what was your biggest takeaway?
That the guy is clever like a fox, has been underestimated, and that unfortunately he does himself a little bit of a disservice when he gets into the whole birther debates or when he takes on Bill Maher or does some of these other things that he feels that he must do for whatever reason. I'm not exactly sure. Maybe it's to keep himself in front of the public eye on a regular basis.
How does he compare to all the Wall Street guys that you interview regularly? Does he have that same kind of stature?
Look, he doesn't care to appeal anymore to the whole Wall Street crowd. And one of the points made in the article
is a celebrity.
Is that,
Wall Street's small potatoes.
That's right. And he makes a point that, you know, he doesn't need their money, but of course I'm sure that he does and takes it. Like for the Doral, which he bought, he was very clear that, you know, he took money from Deutsche Bank even though he didn't need it for a mortgage. You know, he's had a tangled relationship with Wall Street, and a lot of Wall Street firms won't deal with him. But, you know, because of his, what he claims to be his exceedingly high net worth and his exceedingly high liquidity, he doesn't, you know, claim to need Wall Street. And you know, it's very interesting. He's just appealing to a totally different sector of American society and globally. He is a global brand, as he'll probably be the first to tell you.
Omarosa is more important to him than Jamie Dimon. But you mentioned he says whatever he wants. It's part of, you know, keeping himself relevant. Is there an argument to be made this is the mistake we see some hedge fund giants make? He doesn't have a board of directors. He doesn't have any checks and balances or someone saying, guess what? No need to go out there and say that. Is that a mistake?
Not on this one, right?
Yes.
You don't have to, you know, you don't have to bring up the whole birther thing again after the election. So, I mean, no, there's nobody who's a carburetor on his behavior. I mean, you know, he's not that different than, you know, Carl Icahn or Bill Ackman in that regard. I mean, these guys are king of their roosts. Like, you know, Donald is the king of the Trump organization. And, you know, let's face it, very few people are going to challenge that.
But at the same time, he does have a track record, or at least his companies do, of filing for bankruptcy. And that's kind of a stain on his reputation.
Well, first of all, I think it's important to point out, as he does, that was, you know, something like 20+ years ago, and there's a couple of more along the way.
For someone who trumps himself as
no pun intended.
Yes, exactly, as a really smart businessman.
But as he points out, and
he's a risk taker.
Not as a risk taker, but that's the American way. I mean, Carl Icahn has had companies that filed for bankruptcy. You know, Blackstone has had companies that filed for bankruptcy. KKR has had companies.
He's just doing what the system allows him to do. He's
just part. You know, he's using the laws of the land. You know, he negotiated with his creditors. He got out of it. And you know, and frankly, he's also been very clever about buying things out of bankruptcy or buying things, very valuable assets out of restructuring situations, and he's made a lot of money doing that. And now, as purely as a real estate matter in New York, he's also very clever in that he doesn't like to take risks with his own money at the moment. He uses his marketing power. Well, he thinks it's like the highest and best use you can have as a developer is to put your name on buildings and use your marketing muscle to help sell, you know, condominiums in buildings or real estate properties, and not, you know, put any of your own capital at risk.
But does it devalue him in any way? I mean, becoming the Paris Hilton of the business world, I mean, he might not be driving a hot pink Bentley, but look, is there a factor here that you just say, you're so successful, enough already? Do you need to do this? Do you need to put your name on everything?
Well, you know, again, this is part of the Donald mystique, the Donald brand. You know, he's got his family
You're
around
buying
him.
it.
Well, I'm impressed by it. I'm impressed by a guy who is, you know, so dedicated to doing what he wants to do, and he makes money at it. And that's, you know, talk about, housing is a part of the American dream. Well, Donald Trump is part of the American dream.
He lives it.
He lives it, and there are a lot of people who, respect what he's done.
You talked to a couple of people about his golf game. It says quite a bit about him as a person, doesn't it?
I think so. I mean, first of all, he's a great golfer. I mean, he owns a lot of.
I was going to say, he owns a lot of golf courses.
He owns a lot of golf courses, but he's also, objectively speaking, a very good golfer. But then there are a bunch of people on Wall Street who play with him and notice that he tends to have what I like to say are, preferred lies on a regular basis.
Yeah, but a lot of golfers cheat.
Yes, but I think Donald is quite, he denies it, of course, but those who've played with him say he is quite aggressive about his cheating, and it's part of the theater. They're not playing for money. It's just part of the theater of being with Donald Trump. I mean, you can imagine it, can't you? I mean, he's a very theatrical, outspoken guy. He happens to be a great golfer, and, he's playing with other great golfers, so along the margins, to win, he's very competitive. As he says, I'm a very competitive guy, and if I can get a little advantage, who's harmed by it?
Listen, he's made an extraordinary brand. When people think of him, the general public, they think he's one of the biggest real estate developers in America. But is he really?
No, he's not. He's not even close. He's not even one of the biggest real estate developers in New York. But
I bet people would think so.
Absolutely.
If you drive up the West Side Highway, that Riverside Boulevard, that's Trump.
People don't realize that he has, very little to do with that anymore. He's out of that transaction, but his name is there. His name is on buildings all over New York, but he's really not that big an important developer in New York or in America. He's a very big, developer when it comes to his brand and golf resorts and other resorts. And, give him credit. The guy's worth something like $8 billion. I don't know what it is, really. We may never know, but, he's been very successful. Good
like
for
it
him.
or hate it, he's made a brand, and it is a big one.